All right, we're live, Matt.
Hello.
Here we.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. It's Thursday night. It's 8:00 Central Time. It's time to rock it, brother. Episode 23.
Rocket.
Yeah, staying alive. Who sings that?
I'm terrible with music.
It's Def Leppard, man.
Yeah, the
You,
the leopard with the spots on it, the spotty things.
no, it's a music group, man. From kind of started
I
in the
know who
early
they
80s.
are. I just don't know like the names of the things and yeah.
All right. Well, this is episode 23 of InfoSec to Insanity. The title for tonight is The Original Sin. Security was never built in. What do you think of that?
Was it just overlooked at the time, or is the battlefield different now? Like,
At the time, do you think security is built in now?
no.
Right. I agree with you. I don't think security is built in now. So this is actually chapter 1 of the upcoming book, the sequel to Unsecurity 2.0.
Ooh, nice.
The thing is, when you build something insecure, when something's not secure at the core, it's always going to be insecure. You end up just patching, putting shit on top of shit on top of shit, Band-Aids, lipstick on a pig, whatever you want to call it. But if it was insecure at the beginning, it's always going to be insecure. I mean, the core components will always be there.
I like to use the analogy of a chair with 3 legs, a tricycle with 2 wheels. Like, you're building on top of those things. The
Right.
core, the foundation, the house, your foundation is missing a wall, whatever.
Well, along these same lines, we continue to adopt that new technology faster than our ability to use it responsibly. We don't define what secure is even before we launch things, before we put things into the market. Take a look at AI right now, right? You've got IoT. The internet itself was never built with security.
No, it was built for resilience. It wasn't built for security.
Right. So it was built on, you could, to give them benefit of the doubt, you could say, well, it was built with availability at heart, but never confidentiality, never data integrity. Same with TCP/IP, the protocol that runs the internet, which, I don't know, ARPANET, precursor to the internet, 70s. So here we are 50 years later, we're still on the same technology.
I got 2 people in the 1970s said computing was built for openness and not security. Sulzer and Schroeder, 1975. That's how early back they knew we weren't putting security into it.
Right. And so if
I have
you
a
want to
question
build,
for you.
if you want to build something secure, you have to build it with security in mind from the beginning.
Yes.
All right. So what's the question you have for me?
I have a question for you and for the audience.
Yeah.
Do you think we need to burn it down and start over?
Yes.
Or is there hope for fixing what's broken right now? Love to hear what the audience thinks.
Yeah. You have to start over, in my opinion. It's like an insecure network. I've been called in numerous times to implement things like, microsegmentation, or take zero trust, right? We talk about zero trust everywhere. It's a great concept. It's a fundamental concept. But if you truly want to build in zero trust, you've got so many places where security was an afterthought. It's cheaper. It's more secure to start over.
So you mentioned zero trust. There's also this other buzz going around called memory safe programming.
Memory safe programming.
Think that has anything to help us? Are we too far gone?
I don't know, man. You have to define what secure is. These new architectures are still put on top of architectures that are insecure at the core. So it's just another thing to consider on top of something that's already insecure. And sadly, the worst enemy of information security is complexity. So a lot of these things that you continue to tack on and add on are not only, they're good intentions, right, to secure something that's already insecure, but what you end up doing is making something that was less complex more complex, which makes it even harder to secure it. So there's a lot of work to do, and let's look at some of the things that were built.
How do you
Some of
think
the things
we got here?
Well, that's what I was going to get to, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
What the fuck?
Slow your roll.
You need to slow your roll, dog.
I was talking to myself.
Oh, so you were talking to yourself.
Yes.
All right.
Us weird people do that.
Well, because I think people, what are some examples of things that were built without security? You'll find more things that were built without security than you will find things that were built with security. So we already mentioned the internet. What about email?
Yep.
Email was also built without security.
Windows.
Built in. Windows, yeah. Most versions of Windows, certainly pre-XP. I think post-XP, I think there's been at least some effort to put security into the kernel at the beginning, but
they
it still sucks.
Their desire is to still play with everybody, so they can throw all kinds of money around, but there's still no real incentive to.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to the reasons why this is, because accountability, there isn't any, right? I get paid for things that people buy. If people buy insecure shit, I'll just keep making insecure shit.
Yeah.
So industrial control systems, SCADA systems, OT security, not built with security in the core, right? Security was never built in. And you have a lot of these legacy SCADA systems, OT systems that are, core to really sensitive critical infrastructure, but never built with security. Power plants, water treatment facilities, manufacturing systems. For one, they weren't built to be internet facing. And then once we realized, well, gosh, we could be a heck of a lot more. Yeah, we could be a lot more efficient. Our engineers can work from home and control these systems, or I can control, 50 systems, 1,000 systems from one location. So it's definitely efficient, but without security built into the core, it's going to be insecure. And so what do? Yeah, you keep putting Band-Aids on it. Default passwords, a lot of the SCADA systems and OT security systems, they come with default passwords like admin and 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you think we're using Band-Aids to try and cover sucking chest wounds? Is that how you would describe our current situation?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, putting Band-Aids on cancer patients.
That would be a good one too.
Yeah, it gives the illusion of security because it's like I'm patching my systems, I'm doing, I'm changing default passwords, I'm implementing multi-factor authentication, I'm doing all these things, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're securing things. But when something's insecure at the core, it has some effectiveness, but at the end of the day,
according to Gartner, we spend $300 billion on cybersecurity. That to me says we should be pretty damn secure.
Then you wouldn't read about so many damn breaches, would you?
Equifax, SolarWinds, Colonial Pipeline.
Yeah.
300 billion is a lot of money, though.
Yep. Internet of Things devices. It's another example of things built without security built in.
Hospital medical devices, pagers,
absolutely,
all that stuff.
Bluetooth.
Now we're doing EKGs, like built-in EKG, like your own personal Bluetooth to your fucking phone.
Yeah, Bluetooth, because Bluetooth was originally designed for the short-range device pairing, but then it was like, oh, this is super convenient. We can now use it for banking apps, car locks, medical devices, like you said. So there's two pieces here. I think one is it was never built with security built in. And number two, you reuse technology that for what it wasn't originally intended for.
So everyone's going around hacking basically, and then they sell it.
Well, you're chasing your tail all the damn time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cloud services, APIs.
I trust the cloud all day.
Right. Yeah. Cloud and APIs were built for scalability, for sure, for convenience. However, security was an afterthought. There are some cloud services that I think are better that were built with more security built in from the beginning, but there's such a rush to market. Get your money, man.
Oh yeah.
We have to release this quarter. Car computers, not built with security built in.
How many
Smart
lines of
vehicles,
code are in your truck?
250 million. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, your cars are essentially rolling computers with Wi-Fi. Zero encryption. You can remotely control devices. There was that Jeep hack back in 2015. I don't know if you remember that, where you could remotely control the vehicle.
Nice.
Yeah. Serious security flaws. A lot of these, because number one, you're in business, you make cars, right? Your cars are expensive for you to build, and you sell cars, right? If people want to buy your car, they want the features, they want CarPlay, they want to be able to listen to the podcasts, they want the integrated map stuff, they want all the cool things on your dashboard. That's what sells the cars. What sells the cars isn't, this is ultra secure.
Well, so you bring that up, and I just thought of something very interesting, right? I think we're converging right now, and I think it might be a good thing. So cars initially didn't have any regulations, no seatbelts. They were never held accountable. Over time, they matured. They have checks and balances now. They do recalls. They fix all the things. Now that they're putting software in it, is that going to help merge?
No, they didn't just mature. People died.
Right. That is different.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
There's real outcome there, yeah.
People only change generally if they see a big benefit for them. Like, if I do this thing, I'm going to be a billionaire. Well, then I'll go do that thing. Or it hurts. If I don't do this thing, I might die. But we have this general, human nature is, well, it's never going to happen to me. My bank password got hacked. Well, the bank's going to give me my money back. I didn't suffer any pain from that. So why would I change any of my habits? Mm-hmm. And to date, nobody has taken control of your car and run it off a bridge. But is that what it takes?
It shouldn't, but it will.
Right. Well, you try to get out ahead of it. And I think that's what a lot of the security people who've been in this industry for a while, we're trying to do everything we can to stop that from happening. But sadly, I think it's just going to have to happen. You're going to have people die, people suffer, something more significant than CrowdStrike last year before people are going to demand some kind of change. Because right now there's no incentive. There's no incentive for any of your manufacturers and it doesn't have to cost you more to implement security, to make security built into your product. It just takes forethought, right? It takes getting security people, the right security people, into the conversation early on so that you can integrate security. Because what you'll find is a security person, if they know what they're doing, it's not just about it's about being more efficient. Because I know in the back of my mind that complexity is the worst enemy. So if we can implement, your really cool CarPlay securely with, 100,000 less lines of code, we all win. But I think it's a different change of, it's a mindset change.
Groups are territorial, Don't tread on my development stack.
Well, yeah. Well, and from the business perspective, it's get to market. We got to get that new F-150 out November. Come hell or high water. I don't give a shit if it's got bugs. We'll patch it later.
Right.
And security wasn't thought of, physical security, safety issues, but those came about because if you don't do that, you're going to lose your ass because people die. But people still don't see the computer component as necessarily you're going to die. You would have thought with like the Boeing shit,
with that 737 thing,
yeah, with the 737 Max, that would wake more people up. But because
they silence it pretty quick and they settle and then it disappears.
Yeah. Thank you, lawyers.
Yup.
Also, voting machines. Voting machines today they have shit for security. What's kept us, I think, somewhat secure-ish is the fact that most of them are not internet connected. You can't control, 1,000 voting machines from a central location, but that's just a matter of time, right? Because we're still not thinking security built in.
Well, not they're gonna want to connect it all so they can tally quicker because people are impatient. That's what's gonna happen, and then it'll
Right.
get worse.
Yeah, I mean it's just fundamentals, right? It's security, building security in at the beginning. If you're running any operating system, it starts with the kernel. Your operating system kernel has to be tight. Microsoft's kernel is laughable.
I wonder, as we're having this conversation, all the listeners, I wonder, if they didn't know about these things, I wonder how it makes them feel. Like, does it erode trust with customers or vendors you work with, or not? I mean, I'd be curious to hear what other people think, because most of the time it's just like, yeah, it happened again, or right, we just
Right.
brush it off.
Well, if you remember, like in the early 2000s, when you started getting your breach notices, you'd get them through the mail. There was a lot of outrage then. People were like, what the hell? And they were angry. They were angry at TJ Maxx. They were angry at, Heartland. They were angry at Target. They were angry at Home Depot. They were angry at all these companies. But then I think you just get kind of numb to it, because you saw all these breach reports, and then you thought, well, I didn't suffer.
Yep, good.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to tell you either, so like, yeah.
Right. Well, there's kind of this shared suffering, right? It's when there's a big breach and it costs a bank, let's say the Target breach, for instance, you have 45 million credit card numbers, payment card numbers that all had to be reissued. And, there was some fraud associated with it too, where some of those card numbers were used to make fraudulent purchases. Somebody has to pay for that. And it's a shared expense really between the merchant and the bank. And we, as the users of these cards, we're the ones that end up suffering because the bank isn't in business to lose money. What they end up doing is they pay the fees, they get it all resolved and everything, reissue cards, and then raise your fees. You don't see it because it's a $2 surcharge spread amongst 100 million customers. So you don't feel the pain, but we all felt it.
Right.
And then another breach happens, and then it happens again. And so it's like you have these little compromises where you're raising in fees. You're paying $50 or more, $100 or more to have that credit card than you did 10 years ago.
It's almost like they're incentivized to make the breach as big as possible just so they can spread it out as much as possible and people don't really feel it. Because if people felt it, right, there'd be a problem.
Well, even if it was, even if it was 50 customers, 50 customers, it's going to cost us, let's say $100,000. How are we going to recoup that cost? Well, we can either write it off and it's going to, we'll get a tax benefit from it, or we'll just raise everybody's fees 50 cents on checking accounts. So even the small breaches, somebody has to pay for it. It's not like this, game where it's just like magically the damages that happen from the breach just magically disappear. There's always a give and a take. It's a zero-sum game. So if they made a whole bunch of money, meaning the attackers, who lost it? Me, you. Same with insurance companies. Insurance companies are in business to make money. They're not in business to be your savior, to be an insurance company. To be like the one that comes and makes everything okay. They spread their risk over a large population of people. And when you have a ransomware attack, they just raise premiums. So that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why to date it's been this game of like, well, fuck it. We got to get this thing to market because, when we launch this new product, this new software piece, this new piece of hardware, within the first quarter, we're going to make like $100 million. Yep. And if we don't make it, the longer we put this off, the more money we're leaving on the table. So push this thing out. Let's get it going. And if you had security engineers involved and they just oversaw the process, they didn't, even normal people. If you just had normal people that knew what actually went on in all these meetings, they would freak the fuck out. They wouldn't buy the product. Because there's a hell of a lot of shortcuts that get taken.
Oh, yeah.
All throughout the release. And you have to have new releases. Like, what happens if Microsoft doesn't come out with a new release?
They'd be fine, but they need to make more money. Yeah.
Well, eventually what happens is you plateau, right? The market gets saturated with your product. And then they stop buying your product.
Yeah, but they have all the SaaS service stuff, but that
well, that's
part
what I mean.
of
They have to keep making more shit. You have to keep making more shit to make more money. Whether it be a new product, a new SaaS service, a new gadget, a new Surface, a new operating system, a new version of Office. You got to keep making shit. And so it's a greed-driven game, which isn't. I don't have anything wrong with. There's nothing wrong with greed. It's when greed trumps responsibility, civil responsibility. When society suffers from your greed, well, then there's a problem. And I think that's been happening in technology for a hell of a long time.
They're so-called self-regulating. That's just a bunch of bullshit, I think.
Yeah. Even PCI. PCI is funny. Their self-regulation, they know that inherently the system they use to process debit and credit cards is flawed, but it gives, as long as it gives the general population the illusion of security, they'll trust it and keep using it. Why do you keep yawning so much, bro?
I always yawn, dude.
I got some caffeine pills here.
Even GDPR is bullshit.
Take some caffeine pills right there.
Dude, I could take caffeine and I'll still yawn. It's a fucking thing that I have. I don't know.
You have a fucking thing?
Yeah, I got yelled at all the time in the military. Why
Did
the
you
fuck
really?
you tired? Yeah. Why are you tired? Dude, I don't know. I fucking slept. I've been working. I'm fine. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So they actually say you yawn because you're not getting enough oxygen. Probably because my posture and my breathing is not good.
Have a protein bar.
I just had some hamburger and a protein shake.
Nice.
So yeah, even GDPR is bullshit. It's an illusion that they're doing stuff. It forces companies to spend more money to hire more people to do a job, and then they get fined, and it's like, go grab the pennies out of your center console.
Right.
What the fuck?
The angry intern's here. Hola.
Oh, nice.
Well, that's it too, man. You have this illusion of security for one, and two, we just keep treating symptoms. We don't treat the disease, right? So, GDPR is one of those things where you just treat the symptoms. The disease is still there. The one thing I hate the most about GDPR is pre-GDPR, I didn't have all those accept the cookies shit on every website I go to.
Yeah.
But here's the bad thing about that. We've always preached to users and ourselves, don't stop clicking on shit. Read the shit that you're clicking before you click the shit. But every website I go to, I get this damn cookie thing. Do you think I read all that?
No.
I got to get work done. I don't have time to read your fucking cookie advisory bullshit. And so then the habit we were trying to get people to stop, we just reinforced it. Just keep clicking shit.
And they do they're doing the negative. Some of the sites are like, click here to reject your cookies. Other sites are like, click here to accept all cookies. So it's like there's no standard on that either. And either way, you're still trying to fuck somebody.
Right.
Because if you know what cookies do, you're getting fucked.
Well, I mean, there's good cookie usage. Good cookie usage would be for session control, maintaining the session across different web apps, different pages of your website. That's all good shit. But when you're using my cookies to track where I'm going in other places, when you start to violate some of my privacy, those are bad things, maybe. But you think the normal everyday user knows the difference and gives two shits?
No, they don't.
So your GDPR with the cookie thing, you have to approve the cookies to track and blah, blah, blah. What you did is you just numbed people more, just more confusion. It's just more shit that they're not reading, and you're reinforcing that clicking behavior that we didn't want you to have. You made things more complex. That's more code on my fucking website now.
Well, even my business, I have to have a team reading more things, understanding delete requests, all that shit.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, other places. So the whole security, the whole history, right? Going back as far as I can remember with technology, security has never been built in. Never. It's always been an afterthought, even in security companies. Did you read about the Palo Alto firewall problem yesterday?
Not yesterday. A new one? Another one?
Yeah, of course. Because even security companies are thinking of security as an afterthought. The whole CrowdStrike thing from last year.
Yeah.
That was kind of an afterthought. You would have thought, well, maybe we should test our shit before we deploy it to half the fucking world. Maybe have some stop gaps in there, some QA. No, let's just roll with it. Security was an afterthought. 1970s and 80s, we talked about ARPANET. We talked about Microsoft and their ease of use over security. I don't know do you remember 95, Windows 95, Windows 98?
Yep, I played on those as a little wee lad. Playing
security.
The skiing game down the hill. The dude came ate you. Number munchers.
I never played that. Yeah. No, I never played that. All right, I got a game. Let's play a game.
Ooh, a game. I'm trying to find this Palo Alto news. What happened yesterday?
I have to tell you everything?
Yeah. I'm working, dude.
All right. I'll send you a link later because I don't have time to look for it right now.
Just tell me what happened. Was it a vulnerability?
It was a firewall. It's a bug.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a vulnerability.
Okay.
And it gives you control over the firewall.
Sweet.
Yeah. Firewalls. Man, I don't know. I'm not going to go down that path. I love firewalls, and there's all kinds of shit I'd like to say about it, but I'm not going to. So the name of the game is Guess the Breach, Matt.
Guess the breach. I'm in. Breach.
Guess the breach. Each one of these breaches
Yes.
came about. I have 10 breaches. Each one of these breaches came about because security was an afterthought.
Okay.
Right? They're examples of where we suffered as an overall community, but nobody probably took the hit too much. So the first breach, I labeled it the AC guy did it. AC meaning air conditioning guy.
Yep. Target.
So Matt, fuck you. You got to wait till I say it, Matt. Are you going to play by the rules or not?
I will play by the rules.
I mean, we've got listeners, and listeners may want to hear the story, and they may want to guess, and maybe they didn't know that it was Target so fast. Damn it, man. All right. So anyway, this is what I was going to say about the breach that you already mentioned. So imagine you're a massive retail giant with millions of customers. You've got firewalls, monitoring, and all the fancy security stuff. You had FireEye way back when FireEye was just kind of a new thing.
Okay.
But what if I told you your biggest security threat was your air conditioning?
I wouldn't believe you.
One tiny forgotten third-party connection led to a multi-million-dollar data disaster. Who am I?
Target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you know?
I'm just very familiar with that one.
You're very familiar with the Target breach?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm not intimate, but I know. I got lucky.
I still have 3-ring binders full of legal shit on that breach.
You probably have to hold on to it for a long time, I imagine.
No, I think I was supposed to get rid of it, but
you're in a different country. It's all cool.
I'm in Mexico. Is there like an extradition treaty? Yeah, there is. Fuck. Okay.
No, they're sending the military down there, I guess.
They started flying some drones.
Cool, man.
And there's, I think there's 6 to 8 military personnel, special forces that are training Mexican Army people.
Yeah, that's gonna not go well. That never does, but I have sure. Anyway.
Yeah. So for people who don't know the Target breach of 2013, this was where a third-party HVAC vendor, their credentials were compromised. And this is where security wasn't built in, right? Because you think like the convenience factor. The website, Target's homepage at that time, if you scroll down to the bottom of that homepage, there was a little link. It was a vendor login. And you could click that vendor login and then log into essentially their billing site, billing, scheduling, whatever. So super duper convenient. Obviously, security was never built into this. And that site was hosted on an extranet. That extranet was, there were a lot of issues with that extranet. One of them was you could get to the company's intranet site from the extranet. The convenience there was, the HVAC vendors and, whatever your third parties, they could see what's going on with, not really confidential information. Is not supposed to be anyway, but just, corporate news announcements and shit like that. Well, what they found on that intranet site was admin credentials that were stored in multiple places. So you made it very, very easy for the attacker to get into and pivot. The architecture of the network was completely built with usability in mind, convenience in mind, not with security. Instead of network segmentation or network isolation, you had network segmentation. Totally different, right? We're talking VLANs versus packet filtering. Yeah, it was a mess. No multi-factor.
Didn't they have alerting and monitoring mechanisms in place though? At the time, like SIM was big popping off, right? Log collection.
They saw it. They saw all the attack. They didn't know what to do. Left hand wasn't talking to right hand, so they saw that the central, video server. It was a video server that controlled videos for the stores. Mm-hmm. They saw that there was unusual activity happening there, and they even saw the hackers' tools there, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know whose server it was. They didn't know who was responsible for the server. So there was a lot of internal communications about, hey, whose server is this? Or should we rebuild it? Or yeah, and yeah, there's a mess. All right, the next one, Matt. Number 2, guess the breach. The title is Patch, question mark. Nah, we're good. All right, so you get a friendly reminder that your software needs an update. You ignore it because, hey, who has time for that? Fast forward a few months, suddenly hackers have access to 147 million people's personal data, and your company is about to take one of the biggest reputation hits in history. Who am I?
Equifax.
That's right. 2017. It's another Equifax. That was a cluster.
The post was probably even worse. Do you remember that? Like they made a different website down in like South America. You could go on, put in your number to see if you were compromised, and they ended up hijacking the DNS and like it was just a complete disaster.
Yeah, they set up a dedicated website to collect that and then to sign up for identity theft protection. The identity theft protection was provided by the very same people that just led to your damn breach. And it was also, a lot of people have reputation, DNS reputation checks on, outbound traffic. And this is a brand new domain. And yeah, it was being flagged all over the damn place as a phishing attack. Because you also had to log into it. You had to put your social security number into it.
Mm-hmm. That's how they checked. Yep.
Yep.
Do you remember how much they paid out for that?
I don't. In terms of a fine?
Well, I don't really care about the fine. I'm like, they paid people back, right? I think it was like $3 or something. So I'm trying to put it in context for like the listeners. Think about the data you have in Equifax, all your credit card or your credit history, your personal information, and they basically came back and said you are worth like $5.
You have your whole identity there.
Yeah, and you were maybe it was
Your work history,
$12, but yeah, your
work history.
shit.
Yeah, yeah, that is. Well, and the thing you talk about security not being built in, the original sin, the whole use of the social security number, that whole concept of identity, the whole concept of identity in the United States was never built with security. Your social security number was originally intended for tracking your social security benefits. And then all of a sudden it became an identity piece.
Because it's a unique number. We can use it everywhere.
And if you built security into that, so if this was an intention to use this number for these other purposes or to expand the use, and you had thought of security early on, you would have thought of things of like, what do I do if this number is compromised? Right? And so you would make a mechanism to be able to change that, because once data's gone. You're not getting the data back. The only thing you can do is make the data worthless to whoever took it. And you make it worthless. That's why we do password changes, right? You make the password useless. Same thing with like your social security number. Not to mention, did you ever ask for your social security number, Matt?
I mean, I asked my mom for it, but like I didn't.
No, did you ask for the assignment of a social security number to identify you?
No, I did not. I hear some people try to claim sovereign citizenship about that, but definitely you don't have a choice.
I didn't ask for the damn number. I didn't choose the damn number. And I didn't know the damn number was going to be used to track everything about my identity by 3 big data warehouses, data bureaus that make money off of my number. They make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then whose problem is it when the data you have associated with my number is incorrect, is inaccurate? Whose responsibility is it to fix that? How the fuck could that be my responsibility?
When you had no input or choice at all, yeah.
And I have no idea how they secured that information. I have no idea how they use that information. They chose to acquire that information, maintain that information. Data integrity should be completely on them. It shouldn't be on me. But that's just another example of you didn't build security in at the beginning and you got this kind of mess now. And who pays for it? I do. You do. Equifax makes billions of dollars from it.
There's someone trying to fix that. Bruce Schneier, he teamed up with what's his name, Tim Berners-Lee. They're trying to work on something called Inrupt to fix the whole data thing with the internet. We'll see where that goes.
Well, that's internet related. That wouldn't be the social security system.
Well, it's about managing your data, though. You're like you don't give your data to people. Your data's in your own pod, and they want access. They pay you.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck yeah, I'm down with that.
Right. But that's
even
a rip and
even if it's like 2 cents every time they access it, we'll be fucking rich.
Well, that's a rip and replace, right? Because they started thinking with security built in at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
When you have those examples, and sadly they're few and far between, you actually end up with pretty secure systems. You know,
Yep.
like even like your house. If you would have thought of security prior to the design of your house and the implementation of your house, it'd be a hell of a lot more secure and less costly to secure it. But anyway, here's another one. So you got Equifax. We're totally going to get this one. The USB that ruined everything is the title. You're a top secret government facility working on very classified projects. Your enemy wants in, but your network isn't even connected to the internet. Sounds secure, right? Well, all it takes is one tiny USB drive plugged into the wrong place, and suddenly the entire program is in shambles. Who am I?
Is this OPM?
No, this is Stuxnet.
Oh, okay.
2010.
Yep. Iran.
It was a worm, a worm specifically designed to sabotage those centrifuges.
That had
those
to
centrifuges.
Be a crazy ass project to be working on.
Well, yeah.
Not having visibility and then having to be perfect.
There's a lot of. Well, think of all the testing that went into that.
Yeah.
There was a hell of a lot of testing. And in that piece of software in Stuxnet, it was built with the intention of security in mind, right? With a specific purpose. It was elegantly coded. It was very focused and efficient to do the functions that it was designed to do, and that was it. So you could do those same things on the good side. You know, so there's some huge benefits to building security at the core. It takes more forethought. It takes more, I think, ingenuity. But what you end up with is something that's extremely efficient, elegant, and kind of lethal in this case. So if you don't know Stuxnet, that happened in 2010. That's 15 years ago now, man. It seemed like that happened like
yesterday. Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yep. It went under the radar for a long time. Yeah. It came out. Then it kind of went.
Yeah.
No one still claims responsibility for it, but pretty sure everyone knows.
Yeah. We know who it is. All right. So number 4, oops, we left the door wide open. Your company's security is so bad, even a low-level IT intern can walk in and steal all your passwords. Oh, wait. Someone actually did that. In fact, the hackers didn't even need to break in. They found your super secret admin password in a public file. Who am I?
Don't know. Probably happens everywhere.
Yeah. No, these are all famous breaches. This one is actually related to SolarWinds in 2020.
Wasn't it in the dev environment or something?
Yeah. And a researcher found their secure, quote unquote, update server was protected by the password SolarWinds 123. So that was involved in many. That was one of those breaches that just got so sensationalized that people thought it was a hell of a lot more sophisticated than it was.
Well, everything is sophisticated these days, they say.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that breach, the attackers slipped malware into the SolarWinds Orion updates, and then those updates infected people who are using Orion, and there's a command and control component and a whole bunch of other shit, pivots and what have you.
Wasn't there like a control that could stop that command and control?
Yeah, a fucking firewall that's configured correctly. Yeah. Yeah, a firewall that had egress filtering implemented. Why the fuck would your Orion server ever need to talk to the internet?
Because you want to get the updates automatically. That's why.
Why do you want updates automatically? And even if you wanted updates automatically, find the update server and isolate your traffic to that.
That's too hard.
Because the thing is your Orion servers, your Orion system would still have the infected code, but that wasn't really the big deal. The big deal was having command and control.
Yeah.
So it was the other data stream, the other communication stream that really caused the shit. So yeah, it was a bad one. And IRS was, that was where I first learned that, holy shit, we just suck. We don't think of security as, it's not built in at the beginning of our network architectures. Because if we were, we would have had egress filtering locked down on the firewall because that's the way it works.
You would turn that on, then you would build everything out after.
Right. Yeah. And good luck with zero trust if you're not doing that.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn fundamental. And that going back to the target breach, the data exfiltration on the target breach, was all FTP. It was port 21 outbound. So there were many, many, many broken things within that target breach, but there's another one where they didn't do egress filtering on the firewalls, and you could FTP anything out of that network environment that you wanted to.
I think we got away from egress filtering when we switched over to stateful inspection. It's a false sense of trust.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we got away from egress filtering on firewalls when we just continue to adopt this new technology faster than our ability to use it responsibly, and we didn't implement security as part of just the business process. So the users just kept buying new software. You just kept implementing new systems. You kept visiting new websites. The data flows became so extreme and so out of control that in order for you to bring that back, it's a fuckload of work, right?
Yeah, it's near impossible.
Yeah. And so then we created things like, well, let's proxy the traffic. But then that didn't really solve the problem. So you just kept adding more shit on. Instead of just using the firewall fundamentally the way it's meant to be used, we just look for that's another one of those places where we focus on the symptoms and we don't focus on the root cause. You already have the technology. You already have the tool right there in front of you to stop 90% of your command and control shit.
You have everything.
And you decide not to use it.
You got your firewall for egress, and then you got your layer 3 switches, VLANs, put some ACLs on it, and segment your work groups. I mean, that's half your battle.
Yeah. That kills a hell of a lot of the ransomware because there's no command and control. There's no detonation. Mm-hmm. There's no pivots.
You can put malware on my computer all day. If it doesn't run, who cares?
Exactly. And that's when if I was engaged to do threat hunting on your network, that would be one of the first places I would start is your communications outbound. What command and controls are here? Then go back to those, and then find those systems, find the software. And then, it's not rocket science, but it takes work. All right. Here's another one. Would you like ransomware with that? Is the title. You wake up, grab your morning coffee, and log in to work, only to find all your files are locked And there's a message demanding Bitcoin if you ever want them back. Your company has no choice but to pay millions to get their systems running again. Meanwhile, the hackers are sipping cocktails on the beach. You have a guess?
Colonial Pipeline.
It is Colonial Pipeline.
I got lucky as fuck.
2021. Yep. The thing about Colonial Pipeline, do you remember, I'll never get out of my head watching people put gasoline into
Garbage bags.
plastic.
What the fuck?
There's some people you just can't help.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, there are people like that who have computers.
They're operating these things that
They have
we
bank
are-
accounts.
Yeah.
I wonder if any of those are cybersecurity professionals.
I wouldn't doubt that there's some of them.
Yeah.
Paranoia everywhere.
That breach would have been stopped with multi-factor authentication. Most breaches. If you had two things, if I gave you two things to do to stop like 90% of the shit that happens, it'd be multi-factor authentication and egress filtering under firewall. If you could do those things, those two things, you're in a great spot, man.
So I'm multi-factor. I know that everyone says, oh yeah, it's gonna stop. It's a good control.
What's going to stop?
MFA, it'll stop things.
Oh.
But then you step across the line into the other world and holy shit, MFA is hackable. We just broke this. We just broke that. We can hack MFA. You need to
Everything's
have
fucking hackable.
resistance MFA now or whatever the fuck is going on. How do you process that stuff, or do you just ignore it?
Well, you don't ignore it because you need to take it into account. But if you look at that in perspective, you realize, okay, it's not the place for me to spend my next dollar or my next thought, really. If the truth of the matter is everything's hackable, right? And when you think about your situation, when you have situational awareness, most of the threats facing most people are money-motivated attackers, are attacking at scale for a profit. And so why would I spend time from an attacker to bypass or hack some of these multi-factor authentication when I'm still going after people that have single factor?
Yeah,
I don't
there's
even need to
still
fucking worry about it.
50 million that don't have it. Yeah.
Right. So it's something to be concerned about in terms of like knowing that it's there, but it's not going to motivate me enough to fix anything.
So it's all just industry noise to sell more shit. That's what I'm hearing.
Some of it's that, and some of it is, I think there's a lot of security people in our industry who posture a lot, and you look what I did, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're like, okay, cool, but it doesn't really matter. I think the worst security people, some of the worst security people out there are the ones who can't put risk into context. Where yes, that's a risk. In context, it's not a big deal. If I were to rate it, on a scale 1 to 10, it's a 2. Subject to change. And that's the reason why I want to know about it, is because, things change over time. And I want to be aware, if that attack technique is used, at least I have, TTPs so I can identify it. But beyond that, it was hard enough to get fucking executive management to put in multi-factor to begin with.
Mhm.
And now you expect me to go back to them and say, yeah, all that money we just spent to do that thing, we now have to rip it out and replace it with this, and it's going to cost us this. I mean, I just shot my credibility to hell. Really, and then you couple that with like it's not that big a deal, really, anyway. It's just noise, yeah. So Colonial Pipeline. All right, here's another one. Social media backdoor. You're a massive tech company. You own one of the most popular social media platforms on the planet. But your employees, they're a little too trusting. One day, a few of them get a phone call from IT support, and the next thing you know, some of the biggest accounts in the world are tweeting out Bitcoin scams. I just gave you a
He
hit.
sure did.
That's Twitter. 2020. You remember that one?
Yes, I do. Like Elon's account actually was, and Kim Kardashian, I think. Yeah, the big ones were
Kanye West,
Kanye.
Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was interviewed by some news organization on that one. I don't remember what I said, but anyway.
Yeah. Don't buy crypto. Easy.
Right. Well, assume so. Like, think about situational awareness. Assume because you can, even though the products we use aren't built with security built in, it doesn't mean that I can't do things with security built in when I'm using things.
Make smart decisions. Put it
Yeah.
into context. Yes.
Right. So even though Twitter, got hacked, if I'm thinking security, from the get-go, would I give a shit? I guess you could impersonate me, but I don't know. Was that my problem? Maybe, I guess. I don't know.
If you're big enough, you could impact other people, which is taking advantage of people.
Yeah, I suppose. All right. Here's another one. An almost $1 billion typo. You're a major financial institution processing millions of dollars in international transactions every day. But one day, hackers make a false or fake transfer request. Thanks to a mix of bad security and dumb luck, they almost steal $1 billion.
This is recent. This is North Korea and SWIFT.
Until
right?
I'm not done. I'm not done yet, Matt.
You paused. Damn it.
Well, yeah, it's because there's a fucking dash in my sentence. So you almost steal $1 billion until someone notices a tiny spelling error. Who am I? You won't get this one.
Isn't it North Korea and SWIFT banking system through like wasn't it like Indonesia or something?
Oh, dude, that was close. But this was in 2016. It was the Bangladesh bank heist.
Oh, I do remember that one now. Yes, there was KnowBe4 was spitting out all kinds of templates for that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. They tried to steal so the attackers did use the SWIFT network, and they were trying to steal $1 billion from Bangladesh's central bank. Here's the funny part. If you know this story, they successfully stole $81 million, but their own typo. They meant to type foundation, but they misspelled it as foundation. And that's what flagged the transaction and got them busted. I mean, not busted, stopped. I don't think they ever caught them. So sometimes bad spelling can save the day.
AI will cure that now going forward. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. The copy paste disaster. You're a major credit card processing company handling millions of transactions daily. You decide to do a routine security check-in. Whoops. You just accidentally exposed 130 million credit card numbers. No breach needed. You just copied them into a place hackers could find them.
How do you do a security check and expose? That doesn't make any sense, but is that Fiserv or something?
That's Heartland Payment Systems. That was back in 2008. That was a huge one, man. That got everybody's attention. You go back to what I was saying before, where you got these breach notifications in the mail way back when, and you were like, it was almost like Pitchfork Nation, man. I mean, you wanted, you demanded.
Heads.
Yeah, but the thing is technology was so new to so many people back then that they always talked their way out of it. They would say things like there were always like a lot of laptops being stolen back then, or backup tapes that were stolen that were unencrypted and all this shit. And they would always say, like, if it was a laptop that was stolen and, there was 1 million people's shit on there, they would say things, well, it was password protected. And people would be like, oh, okay. But then security people like us are like, that. I mean, it takes 5 seconds to bypass that. Your password protection, because the data that's stored on the hard drive is unencrypted.
Yeah, you just plug it in somewhere else and take it off.
Yeah, so
Easy.
that was kind of what happened with the Heartland payment systems was they just talked their way out of it. You know, people were freaked out. People were pissed off. There were senators talking about it. There were all kinds of shit, and they just talked their way out of it. The same thing, actually, they do the same damn thing with SolarWinds.
Yeah, they did. They in front of Congress too.
Yeah, just talk their way out of it. Just like, well, you know,
Isn't Heartland a Wisconsin-based company?
I don't know where they're from.
I think they're Wisconsin-based.
That was 2008. So what they did is they left credit card data unencrypted and accessible to the attackers. 130 million cards were stolen. At the time, it was the biggest financial breach in history. Led to a whole bunch of shit. All right, more left, Matt, and then we can get back to our topic. The hotel that handed over your data. So you check into a fancy hotel, swipe your card, enjoy a nice stay. Little do you know, your personal info is now sitting in a hacker's database, along with 500 million other guests. Turns out the hotel chain security was about as sturdy as a wet paper towel. Who am I?
Marriott.
You are Marriott, 2018.
That was a compromise 3 years in the making due to a merger. Or 2 years
actually,
in the making. Something like that.
It was 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Starwood Hotels. Their reservation system was hacked. So this was a case where Marriott had bought the breach.
Yeah.
Right? Because the breach was, so you paid for it. And so the fundamental basic security shit, how many companies, when they go through an acquisitions, especially back then, it was unheard of to bring a security person in to do a security analysis or assessment or whatever
Just
of the acquired company.
Yeah.
Yep. It was all money motivated, looking at the financials, market analysis, all that shit. And then, strike the deal. It still is a lot like that, believe it or not.
Yeah. Heartland is a Wisconsin-based company, by the way. Little Chute.
Nice. Yep. So the lesson in that one, when buying a company, maybe it would make sense to check if you've been hacked first.
Include your security peoples.
Yeah. All right. Number 5. This is the last one. So the Wi-Fi nightmare. This one's called, you're at a coffee shop enjoying free Wi-Fi. You check your mail, maybe even log into your bank account. What could go wrong? Well, it turns out your connection was about as private as a Times Square billboard, because the entire world just found out about a major Wi-Fi security flaw. Who am I? This one you probably won't get.
Oh, that's real early. Probably with WEP. Yeah, it's probably back in 2006. I have no idea.
This is the crack attack.
Okay.
KRACK attack in 2017. There was a fundamental flaw. This was actually in WPA2. Oh. It was in the implementation of WPA2 that would allow you to just eavesdrop on all the network traffic. You had to also get in. So it was usually coupled with like a
the DAuth, right?
MAC address spoofing attack where, so when a computer, this is like where TCP/IP is
not secure,
but with security in mind at all. Well, because when my computer wants to communicate with another computer on the network, what it does it with a MAC broadcast, right? Because I need to resolve the TCP/IP address, which is the logical address, to a hardware address, which is the MAC address. And so you broadcast onto the network, hey, who's got this IP address? Respond with your MAC address. That's the English version of what the computers are doing. And there's no authentication built in that. So you could reply with your MAC address because that is your IP address. But as an attacker, I could also reply that I've got that IP address, right? Because then the communication flow actually happens with the MAC address.
Take the quickest route or whatever one's answering faster.
Yeah. So that's a MAC spoofing attack. Super duper easy to do. A lot of your hardware now has been kind of patched against that, but
you have to turn it on. If you're in an organization that has legacy equipment, good luck without people thinking you're going to break stuff, even though you probably won't. But hey, that's a process.
But hey, so there you go. That was
all right.
some of the breaches.
Got a question for you. You have an option.
That was Guess the Breach. You did well today, Matt.
I could have done better. What's the worst security blunder you have seen, or which one of those do you think was the worst?
The worst security blunder I've seen. There's a lot of them.
No names, just war story. The audience can drop in and chat on that too. Curious.
So, with myself, the first time I was ever attacked in a business was back in 2003, maybe 2004. We were storing credit card information in a SQL 6.5 database because that was the latest and greatest then, unencrypted, because you just never thought that
computing power was a thing back then, right?
Well, and I don't think there was an ability to encrypt it then. I mean, it just wasn't. It was an afterthought, like to the point of what we're talking about. And a Romanian compromise. It was a SQL injection attack on our website that essentially gave them access to, the database. Because the SQL injection attack, you can run SQL commands. You can drop databases. You can write to databases. You can, do a lot of things. And so he was nice enough because a lot of our attacking back then was a lot of us knew each other.
Right?
Yeah. And so he just defaced the website and then sent me an email telling me how he got in. But that was embarrassing, but it was, way back when, really early on. When I was at US Bank, two roles there, threat and vulnerability team, and built their incident response team. So as we continued to deploy more on the detection side of things, we came across a whole bunch of attacks. And one of them was a bank president in Kentucky who had been stealing money and had set up 4 of his own accounts with like $100,000 each in them. And we alerted to it. That goes to the fraud people. That's not a cybersecurity thing.
Yep.
We detected it, and that was the process. And they were so new to all this shit that they had no idea kind of what to do with it. And then we saw him drain all 4 of those accounts at 6:00 in the morning before the bank opened, and then he left town. And they caught him at I think he was in Lexington, and they caught him, I think in Cincinnati or something, at a casino. That's where they busted him.
Put it all on red, baby.
Yeah. So that was an interesting one. Also, when I was at US Bank, our shitty CISO at the time, just a really bad CISO, he had our team go around and do an audit of people that left their computers opened. We worked at the Shepherd Drive. It was a technology park back then, across from the airport in Minneapolis or St. Paul. And he didn't tell us why, And so he said, and so the audit was to put a sticker on every computer that we found that was unlocked, telling this person to attend this meeting at this time. Right. And so we did that. We just thought, whatever. Well, those people that showed up at that meeting, which we were also at, he fired them.
That's not good for culture, but
I was so fucking pissed off because you didn't tell us, you didn't tell my team, and now we're the evil guys.
Yeah, no, you have to work long to come back from that.
Does anybody want to work with us anymore?
Fuck no.
When you find out that this is what happens.
You cross the security guys and you're gone.
Yeah.
No way.
So there's a lot of stories of my own where I was involved. The Target breach obviously was so just shitty. I mean, there were so many opportunities to stop that breach, that entire kill chain. It was complete, in my opinion, it was complete negligence throughout that breach, from lack of network isolation, because at that time PCI had just come out with like version 3, where they had changed the language from network segmentation to network isolation. The problem is so many people didn't know what network isolation meant. And so, that was a problem on that case. The fact that you had, your systems in the extranet site were 2-3 major versions behind. The fact that you were storing, admin credentials on the intranet site that were in clear text. The fact that you saw the attacker doing all your shit and had no idea what was going on, who owned the server, how to stop it. Everything. There were another 10 things that I could say about that breach that were just like, what the fuck? So I don't know which one is the worst. There's a lot of them, man. There's definitely a lot of them. And those are the ones that you can talk about, right? There's a lot of shit that you see all the time that you can't really say anything about.
Mm-hmm. All the NDAs and all that. Hoo-yah.
Yeah. Yep. And there's just a lot of shit that happens in a lot of different places. There's things that you've seen that you can't unsee, in some of the incident response work that you've done over the years, whether it be child pornography or animal pornography. I mean, I've seen shit that you can never like unsee, you know what I mean? Just, and I think to know that shit goes on, I think it helps with your situational awareness, because I think a lot of us give people the benefit of the doubt because we're used to a lot of face-to-face communications. Like, so I would never even have a face-to-face communication unless there was some level of inherent trust with you. Because if there wasn't some level of inherent trust with you, I would eliminate you the second I knew you existed. Right? If I completely distrusted you, like you were the threat, you know what I mean? But we have this kind of inherent trust with people. That's why you go out in public, right? And you see people and, you share the road with them, you share coffee with them. But on the internet and a lot of the technology we use, we forget maybe that the person on the other side is kind of anonymous to us. I mean, if you see some of the shit that happens on social media, the things that people say, they would never say that shit to me in person. But, you get this, what do they call that? The keyboard
warrior,
keyboard testosterone or keyboard whatever.
Yeah.
Where
confidence.
Yeah, I can spew all kinds of shit, and there's no consequence for it. So yeah, it's a dangerous place, and all the more reason for us to build security built in, right? What you can do, what I can do, what we can all do as users of things is think about it before you buy it, right? If I'm going to buy it, yeah, number one, do I need it? Number two, how would I use this responsibly before I buy it, right? Should I change the default password? Should I isolate it? Should I put rules? I mean, whatever you're going to do, whatever the device is, or whatever, if it's a new iPad, iPhone, define that shit ahead of time. Because when you don't, like I love using this example. How many apps do you have on your phone right now?
A lot.
And most people have no idea, right? It's an afterthought. It's an afterthought until one of those apps ends up fucking you, which happens, I suppose.
They all do, though, by nature of data collection. So really,
yeah, it's kind of masqueraded behind everything, right? So what else you got to add? What else do you have to add? So that's what chapter 1 of Unsecurity version 2.0 is going to talk about. It's going to talk about Because what happens, us as information security people, I'm responsible for implementing some security, something rather, somewhere, and I'm already handcuffed. I mean, you have to think about the playing field I'm playing on. It's not level. And I still play on it, but I also, I'm honest with the people that I'm working with or working for. When executive management says, the reason why you're here is to keep me out of the news, I can't keep you out of the news.
Yep.
I will never, ever, ever be able to keep you out of the news. What I can do is, help you create a really good story for when you are in the news.
Defensible.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things about incident response is I think if you've done it before and you have a short window at the beginning to control the message.
Mm-hmm.
So you lose that ability to control the message when somebody else discloses it before you did. Or if you don't, you didn't prepare for it, an ad hoc sort of response like Equifax did.
Mm-hmm. So if you had the power to burn it all down, start fresh, would you? Why or why not? Curious what your thoughts are, and people in the comments sound off. Be curious to see what you guys think, how we could solve and tackle this problem.
What would you do?
I'd burn it, start over.
Yeah, I think I do. I do like
painful,
those.
But
what do they do when they do like, what do they call it? Forest fire management. They do those controlled burns.
Oh, controlled burns, yeah.
I would do those. Let's pick one thing, burn that, rebuild it. Pick another thing, burn it, rebuild it.
Well, then where do you start then? Do you start with operating systems? Do you start with what you call it, the compiler? Do you start with TCP/IP, DNS? Like,
pick one.
or any one of them? Just throw a
Yeah.
dart.
Well, one of the things, yeah, because in our industry we have trouble with consensus. If I was to ask 10 security people where to start, I'd get 10 different answers, and then we'd sit and argue about it all day and never get anything done.
I'm smarter than you are. Yep.
Right.
Totally.
So just pick one. If you want to do TCP/IP, well, then we already have a fix for that. I mean, it's IP version 6 that was built with security built into it.
That no
IP,
one has
IPsec is native in IP version 6. So there you go. I guess I'd start there. Maybe. I'm a network guy too, so I'd be biased on where to start. Yeah, but I agree. You have to, because what you end up doing is you just continue to put additional layers of lipstick on the pig.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to truly implement things like zero trust, think of all the places where there's trust in your network and where there's trust in your architecture, in applications, between operating systems, it's just like, it's very, very complex. And you can't really do it without a rip and replace on some things. Like the network architecture, for instance. If you wanted to truly implement network isolation and any network architecture that's complex at all, you're going to have to probably build another architecture the right way and migrate things over into it. So it wouldn't be just like a burn it down and then build. It'd be build a parallel
side by side, yeah,
and move it. Yeah.
Which then you would have to have something to convert it all over. A migration tool.
Or a plan, just think it through.
Yeah.
I mean, the one good thing about doing shit like that, we talk about situational awareness as being like such a huge important part of information security. The better you know Sun Tzu or whatever said it in that damn book he did, Art of War or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like age-old wisdom. The people that are the best at defense, securing, are the people that know themselves the best. So if you really know how your network operates, you really know the applications, the servers, what these things all do, you're so much better at securing it. It's just so damn complex right now. But the good thing is when you go through the process of learning all that shit, you'll probably find a whole bunch of shit that you don't really need, that you can dump. That means more systems you won't have to patch. It means more systems you won't have to configure securely. And it's a huge risk reduction if you can go through that process.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing that shit. I like getting rid of shit.
Totally. Saves money. Businesses like it.
Right. And you'll run into the political bullshit, where
I
it's
need
like, well,
this. I might need this 3 years from now. Fuck you.
well, I don't know if you want to say that. Maybe you want to say that, but it's talk it through. I mean,
You're
it's
not
the same
gonna
thing I
need
would
it.
do if my kid came and asked for a new piece of software. Why do you want it? Well, I need it for school. Okay, what are you using it for school? Well, it'd be doing this and that. Like, if we don't have an alternative to satisfy the needs of whatever it is, then okay, we're going to do it and we'll do it securely. But a lot of times you'll find like we already have something. Use that fucking calculator or something. I don't know.
So do you think government regulations, any of that shit, CISA, is any of that helping? Vulnerability disclosure, right? That was a thing that started with the CDC back in 97 or whatever, pushing Microsoft, 96, right? Is any of this helping?
That's a matter of an opinion, right? I mean, you'll have opinions across the spectrum on that. I think anybody who's got an opinion, come prepared with some defense of why you think that. I think CISA, government, they've done some good things, but I think it's a lot of window dressing. I don't think it's the core fundamental things that they should be working on. And so it's a lot of distraction from key components. Like, I don't know why we haven't defined as an industry what's negligent and what's not negligent and been black and white about it, just like you would do in the military or anybody else who wants to take this shit seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it negligent to have single factor authentication on something that's exposed on the internet? That'd be a fundamental question that I think we need to answer. And I think the answer, I would be on the side of absolutely it is. And once you define that together as an industry, and it takes somebody like CISA that has the influence that they have to do things like that, if we all came together and said, if you don't have, again, if you have single factor authentication on something on the internet, especially if it's connected to an internal, trusted network, that's negligent, watch how fast people change, right? And it's that influence that we need to get people to make these changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you find, that where CISA's, it's a lot of marketing. They're very, very good at marketing. They try to do things for people when the things that I'm doing for you are not my responsibility to do. They're your responsibility to do these things.
Yeah, they're trying to offer up services, right? Just another consulting firm.
Well, yeah. Well, and you're taking away the accountability, right? So free vulnerability scanning, at the heart, that on the surface, it seems like a really, really good thing to do. However, if you have shit, you should be doing this anyway. It's your responsibility to do it. Don't rely on the government to do shit for you. Don't rely on anybody to do shit for you unless you've kind of subbed that shit out because you prefer it. Like, it'd be like a car. I use a mechanic to fix my car, but the car is my responsibility. You know what I mean? And it's just, I've been missing some pieces, I think, with that. I think the fact that we don't have everybody in this country speaking the same language is a big problem.
I agree on that one. Yep. I was just doing some talks yesterday about risk because I always hear the answer, oh, yeah, it's a risk. What is the risk? Like, I'm not sure you know what question you're asking when you say that, but let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I think in some ways, CISA has made security more complicated when I think you have a really good opportunity to make it less complicated, which is awesome because simplicity would be the opposite of complexity, which makes us all happier.
Mm-hmm.
I think you also need to really push on accountability. I mean, people aren't going to change. It's just noise. And on the software vulnerability stuff and the vulnerability reporting stuff, I mean, you've got major, players who are, playing that game, but think of all the software developers and all the software that you use. That ball's going faster than you are, right? So
Do you
you're
think
not going to catch up.
Do you think CVSS is valuable?
Yeah. Yeah. I like metrics. I like numbers that represent things. So, CVSS 4, I believe, is the latest.
I've not
CVSS
heard of 4.
version 4. Yeah. It continues to mature. The thing I like about CVSS is it's one of the most well-known metrics in our industry that we speak the same language.
So the only reason I asked that question is because every month Microsoft has like 100 fucking 10s. So if everything's a 10, is it even helping prioritize?
I don't know. I mean, 10 is critical, which
Everything
means like,
it goes back to risk though. Everything can't be critical.
no, it can. I mean, everything can be critical. It just shows how shitty things are. It shows how shitty your software is, but yet there's no accountability for it. I mean, your software developers, there are lots of really good developers. It's not the developers themselves. Typically it's the company that's
Business
using the
pressure.
developers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, what's your accountability for writing insecure code? Why the fuck is it my responsibility to patch my systems for the shit that you wrote that sucks? I mean, it sucks, honestly. I mean, there's always going to be some part of that, but there's got to be some reciprocal accountability here where you continue to write poor software. I mean, if I go buy a car and the car crashes and I die because there's a bug, you don't think that the car company's going to have to pay me something for that?
They do a recall, they'll pay out. Yep. It took them a while to get there though.
I can't think of another product, any physical product that I can buy anywhere that if the defect causes me harm, that I don't have some recourse. Whereas in the software and the tech industry, like you buy shit all the time that's causing you harm and there ain't no recourse for it.
I like
So what's the motivation for Microsoft doing anything?
I think Ryan says it good. It's a different type of hurt, and our brain does not connect it because it's digital versus analog.
Oh, I mean, hurt is obviously you've got physical pain, but anything you take away from somebody that they view as valuable is the hurt I'm talking about. You just haven't. What I've taken away from you, the reason why you don't feel the hurt is because it hasn't been used against you in a way that it actually hurts, right? I mean, everybody's social security number is exposed already. Now you're not all freaking out about it because it really hasn't been used against me. Logic would tell you that eventually it's going to. Why else would they have it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's when that day comes that it is used against you, assuming it will be, that's the time when you're like, fuck, now it really hurts. I wish I would have thought about this ahead of time. I wish I would have put that damn seatbelt on. But it's your call.
So, do you think we're fighting a losing battle?
No. Ultimately, yes. Now, it's like, if you think like 100 years, and each 25 years is like a quarter. First quarter, is maybe tie game-ish. Maybe we're in the second quarter now, and we're just getting our asses handed to us. Like they are marching down the field, scoring touchdowns at will. We can't hold on to the damn ball. We, penalties after penalties after penalties. And maybe at halftime we get our asses handed to us by our coaches or something. But
that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for that halftime speech. Basically.
Some kind of an event. Something, because let's say, okay, something catastrophic happens and that's the halftime, right? It's just catastrophic. people suffer, people get hurt, people die. I don't know what it is, but logic would tell you if you keep marching down this path and all this data gets accumulated and you continue to use technology in this way, put it into people's bodies, put it on their cars, there's a day of reckoning with all the my dad used to say that there's consequences for shitty choices. We just continue to make a lot of shitty choices, so there will be the consequences. And at that point, I think the fact that people like us were here sort of predicting that it was going to be happening, that's when we'll be, I think, in a much better position to make the changes we need to make. Nobody's going to rip and replace. Nobody's going to fix the Social Security numbering identity crisis because it's super expensive, but so I think, are we playing a game that we can win? Yes. We have a long ways to go until I think we get our coach to give us that speech or get our asses kicked at halftime.
You're very positive.
Well, I mean, logically, well, logically, what's the alternative?
Give up and hide in a corner.
At the end of the game, it's either you come out victorious or they do. What does their victory look like? Complete destruction, death. I mean, I don't know but it's just more of the shit that we don't want to happening, right? More ransomware attacks, more wealth transfer, nation state shit, I mean, there's a whole bunch of nation state shit that goes on today that the general public doesn't know about, and it's kind of in this Cold War kind of spot, right? The mutually assured destruction kind of thing.
Yeah, everyone's just waiting. It's not nukes, it's tech.
Oh, for sure.
Who gives a shit about nukes today? Ain't no one gonna get it.
Well, just like most of your other, infrastructure and.
I mean, it is SCADA, right?
Yeah, most of your SCADA systems. You think those aren't hackable? Yeah. And yeah, they're in isolated networks and all that other stuff. But
so was Stuxnet, right?
There's always a way, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if it hasn't happened already, that some of those systems are already under other people's control.
I heard a pretty interesting story from an Air Force friend that we can chat about later. I got a stat for you, and then I want to get some tips out there. So
tips? Do you say tips or tits?
Just the tip.
Tip.
So
not tits.
Tip. We like
tips. Okay, I do. Yeah.
Stat of the day: cybercrime annual cost, GDPR of Japan. GDP, I mean, not GDPR. GDP of Japan.
GDPR.
So we have an entire country's GDP is how much cybercrime has cost.
What's the number?
It did not give me the number. Fucking AI.
Who'd you get that from? Cybersecurity Adventures or whatever? Cyber Ventures?
I have the resources down here, but it did not really link it to it. Oh yeah, here to cost the world 10.5 trillion. Cyber Ventures. Yeah. Damn, you're smart, man.
Well, that's because they're the sensationalist data shit.
Oh, okay.
It might be that number, but how do you know? I don't know.
All right. So, tips. How can a company, or what should the company do right now? One thing to, I don't want to say avoid, but to help defend themselves. One thing they should do right now: unplug their router, fire their entire staff, encrypt their hard drives.
Defend themselves from what?
Well, I suppose that is a loaded question, right? It could be ransomware. It could be just a regular op outage. Let's just go with what everyone talks about, ransomware.
That's where I would start them, though, is the what?
Right.
The fact that you don't know that. I mean, so I would start with just understanding the environment you operate in.
What's
be open-minded. You know, we make widgets. Well, you know, are we connected to the internet? Yeah, we're connected to the internet. You know, do we have competition? You know, do our widgets, are the widgets used in military stuff? I mean, it's just this understanding of situational awareness. So what I would say, if there's one thing, make this a regular topic of discussion. Open-minded, respectful, and that'll lead you to something to do beyond that, right? But information security is never a one-size-fits-all solution. There is no one thing you can do. It's a number of things. If there's one thing to do, it's get your head straight about it. That's, I guess, what I would say. What do you think? What would you do?
Start with an assessment. See, that will help answer some of those questions. And I think what I learned in my first time running one is that there's a desire to plow through it to like start to get stuff going, but uh, you could probably make it take like a whole year if you wanted to really get good data.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, we're in such a fast-paced, instant gratification kind of world, and it's okay if it takes time. You know, I mean, the number one thing I think most businesses have at stake in terms of, you know, the biggest impacty things that could happen would be probably ransomware, right? Locking down your business so you can't operate the business. And the second thing would be a civil suit, being found negligent for something, right? So in most cases, those are probably the top two things. You know, it's probably not going to be nation state or data exfiltration shit, maybe. But, you know, if you rank all the possible things that could happen, right? Because risk is likelihood and impact. So start with impact. What are the things that could happen? Walk it through to likelihood, and you'll just, but it starts with just having those open-minded discussions about shit like that. And then, you know, act accordingly. It's not rocket science, and it's definitely not something to be fearful about. It's something to be empowered by, because on the negligence side, so if you take care of the ransomware thingy, Majabber, and, you know, then on the negligence side of things, which is what most business leaders are focused on, because they don't want to be held liable. It shows them as being incompetent. Negligence is a naughty word to use in a boardroom. So to avoid negligence, one of the things that always avoids negligence is progress. Always. So like if we went from, you know, we started a risk assessment today, well, that's progress. That's defensible. If you completed one section of the assessment in the next month, that's progress. You know what I mean? Because it's harder to debate on the negligence side of things on whether you moved fast enough or not. Mm-hmm. It's easier on did you do something you should have been doing or not? You know what I mean? So
are you doing the college try? Yeah.
And improving, right? The pace of improvement, that's always debatable, right? That's where budget comes in and
give
all kinds
me
of other
the
shit.
what did it say, $30 billion or whatever that we're spending? Give me that as a budget. We'll get some shit done.
Yeah.
We'll buy all kinds of tools, Evan. We're gonna put in all kinds of tools.
Right. Well, you talk about CISA, right? I mean, CISA this year, 2025, their budget is a little more than $3 billion.
I feel like you could fix some shit with that. That's just me.
Well, I mean, those things that we talked about, you know, could you define some things that are negligent versus not negligent? I mean, build some consensus on some things. And could you implement, you know, some of those higher risk things for less than $3 billion? Fuck yeah. It's pretty cheap to do that stuff. I mean, if you've got the power and, you know, the reach of the federal government. But good questions, man. I love those questions. Those are really good. And I would encourage other people to, you know, most of the people that listen to this podcast, the recording versus, you know, the live stuff. I think Thursday nights, I like it because I get to sit here and talk with you 8:00 at night, whatever. But I would encourage people anytime. But I would encourage people to come live and
interact.
Share your thoughts, share your argue with us. You know, I mean, I welcome it. I think it's respectful. I mean, I would argue with you respectfully if you saw things differently. Unless you're just an asshole, then
As long as you
we'll
say
call it
I
that way.
respectfully disagree, you're covered.
Yeah, but this is a logic game, right? Take the emotion out of a lot of this shit. You know, use logic and reason. Makes you a better security person. Makes you a better leader. I think, you know, when the emotions get high, that's when you start making a whole bunch of shitty choices. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah. So, you know, what do you think? Should we burn it down, start over? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out Evan's blog. He's doing a lot of good things there. Leave us a review. Let us know what we can do better. We're
Yeah.
always looking to deliver for everybody because we're all in this battle together, whether we think we're not. Everything is connected.
Amen, brother. All right. Good talk. We'll see you next week.
Have a good night.
Booyah. It's done, dog.
Boo yeah. Oh, this would have been